thank you so much, Diti, for joining us today. I'm sure a lot of students and parents want to understand from you that how you kind of arrived at this decision to, pursue your higher education at Singapore.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And also, last but not the least, we have Nishtha Saraf, who's joining us. Nishtha is a student at University College London. So for all of you students and parents who are interested in UK admissions, she's going to be the person who's going to be representing the UK part of it for us. So thank you so much, Nishtha, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Super. So now that we've introduced this panel, I think let's just straight dive into the conversation. So I have some questions that I have ready for you guys already. To all my viewers who are joining me on social media, on YouTube, please make sure you're asking us a lot of questions. We are keeping a tab on your questions. We have exciting giveaways lined up for the best question of the episode. So make sure you send me your questions and I will make them a part of my conversation with the student roundtable that we have curated for you today. So the first question is, and I think this really goes to the root of, the entire decision-making process that students and parents go through, which is that how did you decide that you wanted to pursue your higher education overseas? So if you can broadly tell me, what were the parameters in mind? Because like we all know, there are, some great universities in India as well. And even and obviously you have some amazing universities overseas. So what was that sort of, what was the decision-making process you went through, and how did you decide that, I think I'm more cut out for, going abroad and actually seeing myself as a student in an overseas universities. So I think let's start with Dhriti first.
Okay, so I feel that apart from making a person much more independent and pushing themselves out of a comfort zone in a way that studying in your home country usually does not, it helps us in making global connections, and that cross-cultural interaction also helps us in being more culturally sensitive, which I feel are invaluable life skills. Besides this, my own siblings, they had studied abroad, and I could see how they had grown as people and how the knowledge that they gained from there, they could use it here in life. So then I thought that that's the path for me.
Super. So for you, the key factors while making the decision were the fact that you become more independent and second, the global exposure part of it. So thank you very much. I think those are really important parameters that one has in mind. Avni, let's move the conversation to you. You are somebody who's actually done your bachelor's as well from the United States. Then you went on to pursue your master's, which you're doing right now from Columbia University. So what was it for you that really attracted you to an education overseas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think everything Dhriti said was also a factor in when I was making my decision. And just to add to that, I think when you're 18, it's kind of hard to know what you want to study. And I feel that's where the Indian education system kind of puts you in a silo where it's like, you have to know what you want to do. But say if you're looking to go abroad, that's not the case, especially in the US, they have a very strong liberal arts background. So I think I kind of knew I want to do architecture, maybe not. So that's where I think my parents came into the picture, and my father had done his bachelor's from the United States. So looking at his experience where he was, able to switch between majors, learn a lot of things, that kind of inspired me to look into overseas education. And I found there was this whole untapped world where, you kind of show up and then you take classes that interest you and actually study what you want to study versus what someone else has kind of planned out for you, take these 5 classes. So that's kind of what really got me curious and excited about learning for the next phase of my life. So that's when I decided I want to go to the US. And then once I was done and actually the 5-year bachelor's, because architecture is a 5 years bachelor's, I just was even more motivated to keep studying and push myself further. I felt unfulfilled in a way with my undergrad and wanted to, delve deeper into the topics I had looked at. And that's when I thought, let's do a master's. And again, I looked at various countries. I applied to the UK, I applied in Singapore, also in the US. But I think, again, what got the US the upper hand was their education system is so robust and very, very holistic. So you're not just taking classes in your own major, but have so much scope to explore and do interdisciplinary research and learning. And they truly have a metropolitan student body. So yeah, I think that's what motivated me to look outside of the country.
Fantastic. I think you've made some really critical points out there. And one is that, I totally agree with you that it's very unfortunate in India that we still follow the silo-based approach and a very like strict discipline-based approach in India. So for a student who's probably looking to explore and sort of understand themselves better, the Indian system may not be well suited to them. And that's where the liberal approach holds a lot of merit. So I think that absolutely makes sense. And even the point that you made, about I think the metropolitan part of it, I mean, that's absolutely true because, my brother went abroad and studied, and I think the kind of friends that he made, the kind of, the cultural immersion that he had, the exchange that he had with different nationalities and students from different communities, I think that definitely, adds to your personality and your presence as a professional. So Nishta, let's come to you. So you joined University College London last year. And as we all know, so while the US system is known to be a little more liberal, there's more flexible, and there's a lot more that you choose from, the UK is known to be a little more rigid on those lines. So what was the deal clincher for you? How did you make the decision that, UCL was the place for you?
I knew I wanted to study abroad ever since I was in middle school, and I knew I wanted to study history. So I did my research, reaching out to people who were studying history in India as well. And I realized that, India is very sciencey and a very business oriented, the universities are very business oriented, except the liberal art ones that have recently come up. So I wasn't really sure whether I wanted to apply here because, history isn't given that much of an importance. Plus, history is a subject that is so multidimensional, like Avni and Jyoti said about multi-perspectives and judging the story from different angles. I think history needs that. And a place like UK is, again, like the US, a melting pot for all cultures, from the West and the East. And I think that was one of the major major points in me making the decision. I want to interact with people to get to know their side of the story, especially if I'm studying a subject like history. So that's why I chose the UK.
Correct. So I think, again, that's another important factor. I mean, your core area of specialization that you're looking at times what happens is because we are so driven by the conventional sort of professional paths in India, we realize that we've not carved out a lot of opportunities for people who are looking at specializing in other subjects, which may not fall in the conventional sort of Indian mindset that we have. So I think that's an important factor. Now let me come to you, Shreya. I mean, you're somebody who's taken the year off, so that means you've had that time. You would have obviously had a lot of discussions. You would have explored quite a bit to finally arrive at the decision that, okay, you know what, I'm going to go and do my undergraduate at Amherst in USA. So what was that process like? What did you do during the gap year? What were the considerations in mind? What was going on?
Okay, so personally speaking, I was a very confused person because I did not know what to do for my undergrad. I wanted to do law, I liked political science, I liked economics. So flexibility and the area to explore was a huge consideration for me. So that was when I was introduced to the liberal arts kind of education, followed in USA, and I was pretty intrigued by it. So my whole gap year, I almost spent researching about the various colleges, and Amherst College is one which gives open curriculum, which means a lot more flexibility than the other US colleges. So that was one of the main reasons why I chose Amherst in the first place. And in Indian universities, like Avni said, they do not give the flexibility. Every time you enter, you have to choose a major. Like when you enter, you need to have a clear-cut idea about what you want to do. But for me, it was a completely different arena because I wanted to explore and experiment with a lot of subjects before I chose what I wanted to do. Plus, about my gap year, well, the pandemic made me take a gap year, but I would definitely say it was a really, really good year of my life because I got to explore a lot of things. I got to start my own organization. I got to work at a lot of places. I got to do volunteering. So taking a gap year is and will never be a waste of time because there is a lot of stigma in the Indian society about taking a gap year, losing a year, what were you doing? But once you take a gap year, you'll know that it has actually helped you to develop a lot in all the other respects. So basically that's it.
I think thank you so much for saying that. You're absolutely right. There's this huge stigma attached to students who actually want to take the year off. But frankly, you're right. I mean, it's not like, I don't think that, there should be that much of stigma around it, because like you said, I mean, you're just 17 or 18. And a lot of times what happens is when you're doing high school in India, I mean, you may not be exposed to all kinds of opportunities. And this is a big decision of your life, isn't it? I mean, everybody wants some time to be able to explore and kind of understand for themselves that, okay, what is the kind of trajectory they want to take. So I think it's great. And I'm so happy that you're sharing that, along with exploring what you want to be doing next, you actually took this chance to do like different things, like start your own venture, do volunteering opportunities. I know so many students, because especially due to the pandemic, a lot of students did take a gap year, and they've actually, ended up adding so much even to the skill set, because a lot of people have been doing online courses, online skill workshops. So it's adding so much value to you, isn't it, as a professional? So actually you see that, you can actually make very good use of it, and probably take this time to arrive at a much better and well-informed decision about what you should be doing next. Now, this brings me to my next question. All of you again come from, like different sort of, we have Singapore, we have US, and we have UK. So you guys are coming like from different sort of countries. So your decision to join your respective universities, was it based on location or the country? Or was it purely based on, I'd say that, what appealed to you in terms of the culture of the university and the kind of courses they were offering? Like, was location even like in your radar anywhere? And I'd really want you guys to break down this myth, because it is for a lot of parents, especially. So if you guys could, like tell us a little bit about the location or anything of that sort, play a very prominent role in your decision making. So Nishta, let's start with you.
So I personally think it was a combination of both the factors. As I said earlier, that I think the course is really well taught in the UK, because there's just so much history in the UK. And I specifically chose London rather than, I got into St. Andrews, and some city that's, it's like a campus town. But I chose London because it's a metropolitan city. You get exposed to so many more cultures, a different way of life. And especially because you're coming from India, and I come from Calcutta, and the pace of life is so different, the quality of life is so different. I've just spent 5 months there, but I realized that you can just learn so much by just being in the city. And I think it depends on what suits you as a person, whether you're a city person. You can it does get intimidating at times. It's really more fast paced, especially for people from Calcutta. Bombay and Delhi are still more fast-paced than Calcutta, but London is way more fast-paced. And I realized that the minute I landed, I got out of my aircraft and I was like, okay, I see people are so intense here. So I wanted to experience that. So it was a combination of both the factors, and taking into account personal growth, not just academically, but I wanted to grow as a person. So that is that.
Fantastic. Okay, so it makes sense that why you took that decision, and it seems to be that that was also an experience that you were craving for. Avni, what about you? You did your UG at Indiana at Notre Dame, and then after that moving to Columbia. So was location really important to you?
I was smiling when you said location, because I think it was last on my list of when I was choosing where to apply, and when I actually chose where to go, especially for undergrad, because I went to Notre Dame, which is in the middle of nowhere, cornfields, Indiana, very different from Kakara and city life that I was used to. But that said, I think best decision of my life. I remember I landed in Chicago and I was okay, where have I come? There's nothing here, no one here, confused. But I think that's why Notre Dame has such a strong community. And for me, that was one of the driving factors in choosing where I went to school. Probably even more than the academics themselves, which they are a top-notch university. But Notre Dame is a middle-sized school, and their emphasis on community is unparalleled. You land on campus and you already feel that these 10,000 students, undergrad and grad, really love being here, are really passionate and really care about each other. So I think that's what I wanted, this feeling of community and to learn from each other and collaboration, because that's, I think, the benchmark of the US undergraduate system, where everyone's exploring what they're passionate about, and you're learning from each other, you're learning from your faculty, you're doing research, you're like taking part in organizations, you're learning about new cultures. So for me, I think it was the ethos of the school, which was like community-based learning, and again, a robust academic infrastructure. And just to say, like, I was wanted to do architecture. So Notre Dame, the 5-year program, in that 1 year you study abroad in Rome. So I think for me, that was kind of this big deal clincher, because, yes, you are studying abroad, but also thinking about what are some other ways, especially when you're in a field that is, kind of everywhere, like you're designing the built environment, how you can engage further than just maybe India or the US. And then when I think about my master's journey, it was like totally different from my undergrad, like the way I looked at it, because now that I had got that experience of like being in a community, making these connections, I wanted to delve deeper into the study of architecture, actually looked at it more from an academic lens and where I could get the best education to fit my future goals. And that's kind of how I landed up at Columbia, because I wanted to study urban design. And what better city to study urban design than New York itself, which is like this big experimental urban lab. And then Columbia, like faculty is like super robust, and like this program which kinds to bring together people and ecology and the environment, and how do we design for the future. So I think that's how I kind of looked at it the second time. So again, location the second time, but the first time it was community.
Perfect. So see, this is exactly, I think, I'm so glad that both of you had diverse answers to this, because this is exactly the point I think I was trying to drive home to our viewers through this question, which is that, it's a very individualistic preference. And I think it's important that rather than parents making this decision for students, I think it's important for parents to first understand what does, their child want from this experience. So like on one side, like Avni said, in her undergraduate, experience, she was looking more at something where, they could be more of a well-knit, close-knit sort of a college community. That was the kind of culture that she was aiming for. While, for Nishta, it was, she wanted something in total contrast with what she was used to, while she was in Kolkata. And that's what, London offered to her. Plus also the fact that she was studying history, and London was a great choice for that. So I think this is a very important point that, we should flag off, which is the fact that, I think it's important that the counselors who are working, the parents, who are working with the children, let's first try to understand that what do they want out of the experience, and then sort of understand that where does like location fit in their list of priorities, because I think that would really make the decision more better and more well suited for the students. Now to the two students who are joining us, who have been recently out of the college admissions process, I think, it's fair that, we start this question with them, because I would like to hear from them. And I'm sure all the people who are joining us actually want to hear about the big elephant in the room, which is college admissions and the application processes. Right. So I would like first, we could have Shreya, who could talk a little bit, share your insights from, your journey while you were applying to universities. So if I had to ask you, Shreya, what was your checklist for the college application process? Because I want that while you share that checklist, you also break down some myths that, exist around the college application process, especially with the US, because, we see parents and students who are stretching themselves, who are trying to do as many activities, trying to, get as many achievements under their belt. So let's hear from you. What did you do? What was Shreya's checklist while she was applying to the US?
Thank you so much for the question. So, while applying, I would say one of the most important factors is your college selection, because if you mess that part up, then the whole thing is going to go down the drain. So when you choose your colleges, the college should be able to provide you the services that you want them to. You should be a fit into that college. So that is what, even when you write your essays and everything, that is what the college admission officers look for, whether you're a good fit into the college. So when you're applying to colleges, most of the people who apply know this, but for those who don't, you divide your colleges into 3: your most ambitious colleges, your target colleges, and your safety schools, so that in any one of those categories you actually get in. So college selection is very, very important. And another thing is the financial aid part. most colleges in USA give a lot of financial aid, but especially when it comes to international students, they have a certain setback because first of all, you're international, plus you won't be able to contribute that much into your education. So while choosing your college, that is also very important. And the third part comes to when you write your essays. It is a very, very, very stressful thing, but I enjoyed it also because the thing is, when you write your college essays, you'll get a lot of insight into yourself, which will actually help you to merge into the community of the college better, I feel. Because when you reach the college, you will be able to understand who you're truly. So that is a really, really good aspect of this college admission process. And once you finish with all the deadlines and everything, which is by around January 1st, there's a huge 3-month gap before your college decisions come, and that is going to be the most excruciating part because you'll be wondering, oh my god, where am I going to get into? Am I even going to get into a college? Because I went through the same aspect like 2-3 months back, and my mental health just went down the drain. But at the end of the day, all you have to understand is that everything happens for a reason, and you have to buckle up yourself for the best, because whatever the worst happens, you still have an option. So just believe in yourself, and the college admission process will go as it is. It is going to be a really good time of your life, stressful too, but you're going to go through it. And at the end of the day, hopefully you'll have great results. So yes.
Thank you so much, Shreya. Thank you so much for giving it that positive tinge. So for all the students who are joining us in the process, I think, we should draw a little bit of positivity from Shreya. So like she said, everything happens for a reason. So once you're done with it, I know it's easier said than done, but you kind of need to start detaching yourself from the result, because not everything is within your control. I'm sure, with all these students who are joining us today and all the fantastic universities that, they come from, they all would have gone through their shares of ups and downs while they are applying to the various universities. So I think, it's absolutely right. What she's saying is that you need to realize that there's only so much that you can do. And after that, you just have to sort of let go and just wait for things to unfold. Dhriti, let's hear from you. You have received unconditional acceptances from SMU, which you're going to be joining this year. You also received acceptances from the University of Warwick as well as King's College London. So how is it when you were applying to universities? If you can talk about, what is Dhriti's checklist for applying to Singapore, and what is Dhriti's checklist for applying to UK?
Okay, so I would first like to start by saying that Shreya has very beautifully covered most of the points that I wanted to speak about, and that's most of it. And I feel that it's very important to stay true to yourself and to believe in yourself. And I feel that instead of treating the college application process as one big task that you have to finish, a better way to go about it is to break it down into smaller sub-parts and then completing each as time goes on. And most importantly, one thing that I realized is that you should never do anything just to add volume to your college application. Instead, we should focus on doing things that actually add value to our lives, because things that actually add value to our lives will end up adding value to our college applications, but it might not always be the other way around.
I think that's a very good point you have made there, Dhriti. So for all the parents who are driving their kids up against the wall, that, you should be writing books as well, you should be doing a sport, you should be playing an instrument. I think this is an important lesson that we should take a leaf out of this book and learn from, which is, I think we should focus on quality rather than quantity. I don't think I'm wrong when I say this, and this is also emanated from our discussion that we have had with the various career counselors who joined us, which is that, the depth matters. That's what the admissions officer is looking at the end of the day, because through your achievements, through your essay, they're just trying to understand that what sort of a person you are and whether you're a right fit for their institution. So I think it's important that would only come out if they're able to see your honesty in terms of the work that you have done, and in terms of that being reflective of your personality. Now, I have a question for Avni, because since she's the only student who's joining us, from the master's program. So, in India, there's always this sort of idea that you see floating around that probably, it's a good idea to do your UG in India and then go and pursue your PG, post-graduation abroad. What do you think about it? Like, do you think it's a good idea that, students should be given this advice that no, you should do your undergraduate in India and wait it out until you go and pursue your post-graduation abroad? Or do you think that, doing a UG and PG works beautifully because, since you're already exposed to the system in your undergraduate, it becomes a lot easier for you to extract more out of your postgraduate program. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is what is floating around in Indian society. But I also feel it is such an individual decision, and it really depends on, what you want to get out of your life and your career and what is good, not right, but what is valuable for you at, that juncture in your life process. Because this is a tiny part, 3 years of your college life is such a small part in your whole career trajectory. So I think you really have to think about that critically, and it's really hard when you're 18, right, to know plan your life that, okay, I'm going to be here for 3 years, and in 3 years I'm going to want to study more. Because that's the other thing, right? What if after you do your undergrad you're like, well, I hate this, I don't want to study anymore, so now I don't want to do a postgrad. So I think it really depends on the person. And the idea of I also feel there's this disconnect in society where, why do you think you would get more out of a postgrad than an undergrad? You're still going there to study, you're still going to get similar experiences. So if you're ready, if you want to experience this kind of education system, why not just dive into it right when you have the chance? That said, it is true though that when you go for a postgrad, it is shorter. There are more opportunities to get financial aid and scholarships. So definitely that is a consideration in a lot of people's decision. But again, I think it should be intentional versus it being driven by, I don't want to call it superstition, but this kind of hype that, it's better to go abroad for postgrad. I think that's just a myth. There's no right or wrong way to go about your career. I also know a lot of people who, will do their undergrad outside India and then do their postgrad here. So I think it's really very individual and what best fits your career decision.
Super. I think that absolutely makes sense. And I think this is something that this is largely the problem, I think, in our society, which is that, we try to base our decisions on the experiences of others without realizing that each person's different, and what we can make out of these experiences is very different from each other. So I think, thank you so much for flagging the thing off that it's a really individualistic choice, and it can be done either way as long as the student is ready for overseas education and higher education. And also breaking that myth that why wait for PG? It's not like there's any difference in the quality of education. You get the same sort of quality in UG as well. So if you're ready, then why not an undergraduate itself? Now, Nishta, I have one question for you, and I'd like to talk in terms of the opportunities, because you've done this for a year already, which is that, do you think there's the difference in the kind of opportunities that students get when they're studying in overseas universities? I'm sure you must be interacting with your friends in Calcutta. There must be some sharing of experiences that must be happening. So do you see that you're getting access to better experiences than your Indian counterparts?
Actually, I spent my first term in Calcutta. So obviously keeping the if you keep the COVID situation in mind, obviously the situation right now is such that opportunities were limited. But even then, I compare myself to my friends or the other students studying at suppose other universities in Calcutta, and I think just because you're at a global level, and I think Indian schools make you very competitive. You come from a very competitive environment, and you're used to taking a lot of responsibility in school. So I mean, you that gets transferred to university, and you get you have a go-getter personality. Most people do. So I think if you have that kind of a personality and you go to some place like the UK, there are so many opportunities. Here, when I did my internship with the Indian Museum when I was in class 12, and it was so difficult to get it. I had to go to school, and my school counselor had to get go to some of her contacts who were politicians and all of that. So it was a really long drawn process. But I applied to an internship in the British Library or the British Museum, and it is so much more easier. Something as simple as doing a part-time job in India, it's so difficult for an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old to do a part-time job just to feel independent and, just save up for college. But like there, it's very normal. So, I mean, in terms of sports or even like the societies and clubs you join, the level of exposure and the level they expect out of you and the opportunities, even in terms of like, I've been using the career services of my university recently to like come up with like a rough 5-year plan for me. And like the resources that are available to you. And like something as simple as explaining how LinkedIn works. That was never done to us in school here, or like I speak to my friends at university in like, Calcutta, and they're like, okay, we just joined LinkedIn because, that's what people are doing right now, but we don't know how to make an effective use out of it. So I think there's so much more at your disposal at an international university, which Indian students miss out on.
I think those are some, I'm so happy that Nishta, you shared your experience with us, and you're absolutely right. Even in terms of internship opportunities for students, it's a lot more difficult in India. I mean, there is a lot of bureaucracy involved in it. There might be some element of, knowing people, nepotism, etc. So, not everybody gets access to the best of opportunities. So I think that's absolutely true. And again, the thriving student culture that you spoke about, right? I mean, see, academics is not the only facet of a person's personality. I mean, we all have varied interests. So this is something that is now picking up in Indian universities, but we see that, they're fewer in number, but definitely this is something, that all the US, UK, and I'm sure that the same goes for the Singaporean universities. They are very robust student activities culture, which really gives a chance to students to sort of explore themselves beyond the classroom. So I totally agree with you. Now, before I end this conversation today, there's one question that we have been getting quite a bit on our social media handles, which is everybody wants to know that how have each of you sort of dealt with the pandemic, like because you all are enrolled in different sort of programs? How's the pandemic hitting you? Has it acted as a sort of an obstacle in terms of you wanting to pursue your higher education? Because again, there is a lot of misinformation that's floating around in circles about this. So, it's better to hear from all of you that how you guys have handled your college, especially during the pandemic, how the visas, etc., have worked out. Are you guys physically attending class, or has it been virtual for you? So let's first start with the students who are going to be going this year. Shreya, when are you joining Amherst? How's it going? Did the visa process happen smoothly, etc.?
Yeah, so we'll be having in-person classes this year. So I'll be starting my classes in person, and there has not been any online classes as such. And the visa process was really, really hard because we had to sit at the portal every single day, night and morning, in order to get an appointment. So it was very hard. The visa process was very hard, but thankfully I got my visa last week, and I'll be traveling to US this 21st. So apart from the visa and the in-person classes, the pandemic has been, I would say, it actually presented a lot of new opportunities that we were not aware of until now. And if I take it in a positive sense, even though I had to take a gap year because of the pandemic, I was able to learn a lot through it. So I would not say that the pandemic was an obstruction as such. More or less, it was a great, great opportunity. But for the people who has been attending online classes, I think it must have been a bit jarring. But other than that, the pandemic actually opened a really new scope for life, I would say.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shreya. Avni, how's it been for you? You said you've been doing a part of your term in Kolkata. So when are you going to be heading back? Is Columbia going to be hosting physical classes? How does it work?
Yeah, so my master's program, it's a 12-month program that starts in the summer. So it started this past June. So I'm halfway through my summer semester, and I've been doing it online. But Columbia, kind of how they structured it, it's hybrid this semester. So our cohort has certain classes in person and certain online. So that's been kind of really interesting to navigate, especially because it's an architecture program, which is studio-based, group learning-based, we all sit around a table and design things together. So doing that on Zoom has definitely been hard. But that said, I think the silver lining in the whole story is it really makes you resilient and also open to new ideas, and makes your studying more diverse. In the sense, I'll give an example. We have this lecture series, which is basically they pick like the top urban designers in the world and we have a lecture from them every Tuesday. And this would not be possible if, you know, we didn't have COVID and Zoom. Like you could only tap into New York City's resources. So actually having the whole world open up to you in a way through this digital technology, I think has been a silver lining, because you get to hear from so many people. There are like 600 people on Zoom at a time, like sharing ideas. I think that exchange, that like truly global education, is what like this semester has given me. And in terms of like the visa process and actually going, as Shreya said, like that was really like harrowing. Like every day you're refreshing the portal 20 times and then you get locked out. But yeah, I think we're going to have fully in-person classes in the fall. So I'm really excited to kind of, you know, finally be able to go and like be there in person. And like, I think the hardest thing will be to like, we shouldn't discard everything we've learned and done in COVID. Like, I still think the lessons we've taken, the positive lessons, we should like take with us. So like the use of technology and like having these connections opening up. So I think that'll be really interesting, seeing the transition from like, you know, fully in person to hybrid to then how do we take this forward after COVID?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, COVID has unlocked a lot of different opportunities for us. And you're absolutely right. It's something that must stay. I mean, earlier we were barred by physical barriers where, you know, because of, you know, where we were located geographically, we could not interact with a lot of people. But now, you know, since we have explored this quite unexplored area called online learning, I think we've kind of realized that you have every resource that's available to you at the touch of a fingertip. So you're absolutely right. There are a lot of things that we need to continue as well. So Dhriti, you're going to be joining Singapore Management University. Singapore has some really tight rules when it comes to, you know, their lockdowns and movement and travel in the country. So how's it going to be for you? Is it going to be online classes? Are they inviting you for physical classes? What are the directions as of now?
Okay, so my classes start mid-August, and the directions that we've received from the university are that they are going to start in-person classes, but they do understand students who are stuck overseas, so they'll be making virtual arrangements for them so that we are at par in terms of education at least. And until I received that assurance in writing from SMU, I was actually quite anxious about how it's going to be like, because even I had to take a gap year and I didn't want to waste another year by staying here or by not doing much more than I did the previous year. So that was one thing, but the visa process was actually very smooth for me. I received my visa in less than a week. So it's just about the entry approval now, and I hope to get to experience in-person college as soon as possible.
Fantastic. I'm really happy to hear that your visa process was really smooth. Nishta, how's it been for you? Because I think you have done a few months at UK. So how's it been, the movement between India and UK, and what's it looking like right now for you in the UK?
So if I'm being really honest, I did my first term here and it was difficult because, you know, it like after finishing the IB, it was cut short in March and like we didn't really do much in like those 6 months. And it was difficult adapting to the whole, you know, online environment, not being like, I'm a very in-person, you know, I like to meet people and interact with them. That's how I, you know, form friendships and like leave impressions on people. So it was really difficult for me to adapt to online learning. But I think what, you know, made my first year bearable was when I went in January, I actually met a lot of people from my course and I could, you know, interact with them more. Like there were more resources at my disposal. So the thing with a subject as content heavy as history is that you won't find all the resources online. Like you need to read like a wide range of sources. So even though UCL introduced like scan and share, so you could like, you know, request a few pages, but like I needed to read entire books and then it became difficult. So like handling resources when I was in the UK and going to the library made it easier. I did make a lot of friends online as well, but like once you meet them and you have like a strong bond, it's always better. And for me, the visa process was very smooth. It took a lot of time, you know, getting a hold of the documents and arranging them properly. But other than that, it was fine. And for me, the whole year was online, even though I was in London for 5 months. I used to study from my room or like book study spaces. So you got a feel of being at university on campus, but like it was limited. But I think the UK universities made a lot of effort. They understood that it was difficult for us, and they had like a lot of extenuating circumstances. Like no questions asked, you can just fill it in and you get an extension. So they understood that, mental health was being affected, working abilities were being affected. They had a no detriment policy where, they shifted the grade boundaries. So that was good. And next year, for the second years at least, we have all in-person lectures and all in-person seminars. So I really, really look forward to that.
Fantastic. I'm really happy to hear that now most of you are headed towards physical classes. And I'm very happy to hear that how UK also tried to do this model where, they actually got you guys to come to the country. Well, obviously you couldn't attend physical classes, but they created spaces where you could attend your virtual classes and also make sure that you're socially interacting with other students, because that is something that a lot of, especially Indian students, have been missing immensely, which is just the ability to be able to make those social connections and socialize. Because I think a lot of people who would be attending this conversation actually resonate with your feeling that they do much better, when they can interact physically with people. And I think unequivocally across the board, we all believe that, there is the online medium can in no way be a substitute to the physical teaching that we have been doing. While it can supplement in a lot of ways, but definitely it cannot be a substitute or a, at par alternative to physical teaching. I think we've had a wonderful conversation today with all four of you, and it's been great just exchanging thoughts with you and hearing from all of you through your experiences, your personal experiences while applying, how you made the decision, how you guys have been coping with the various challenges that the pandemic has been throwing at you guys. So I think it's really been a great conversation, and I'm sure that a lot of the parents and students who have joined us today are going to go back with some great things to think about, reflect about. So thank you very much to all four of you, and here's wishing all four of you the very best for all your future endeavors.
Thank you.
It was great being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And a big thank you to all our viewers for joining us on a Sunday evening. We are really, really, really happy to receive all your questions and the lovely positive feedback that you guys send us. We're going to be back again tomorrow, where we're going to be talking to Olympian Mr. Sajjan Prakash, who's the first Indian to qualify in the Group A timing for the Tokyo Olympics 2021. So make sure you join us at 5:30 p.m. tomorrow when we are going to be conversing with him. We'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, everybody stay safe and mask up.